One day, Anna heard that there was a language school in the city and decided to go there to learn English. She packed her bags and set off on her journey, determined to become fluent in the language. When Anna arrived at the language school, she was amazed at how many students were there, all eager to learn English just like her. The teacher, Mrs. Smith, was a kind and patient woman who encouraged all her students to work hard and practice every day. Anna worked hard every day, attending all her classes and doing all her homework. She practiced speaking English with her classmates, and even started a conversation with the local shopkeeper, who was from a different country and only spoke English. Despite the initial difficulties, Anna was making great progress and was soon speaking English with confidence. She was also making new friends and having fun learning about different cultures. One day, Mrs. Smith announced that there was a contest to see who could speak English the best. The prize was a trip to London, England, where the winner would have the opportunity to practice their English and visit famous places like Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London. Anna was determined to win the contest, so she worked even harder, practicing every day with her classmates and reading English books and watching English movies in her free time. The day of the contest finally arrived, and Anna was nervous but excited. All the students gathered in the school's auditorium, and each one was given a chance to speak in front of everyone. Anna went first, and to her surprise, she found herself speaking English with ease and confidence. She spoke about her dream of traveling the world and meeting new people, and about how much she had enjoyed learning English at the language school. When she finished, there was a round of applause, and Mrs. Smith announced that Anna had won the contest. Anna was overjoyed and thanked Mrs. Smith for being such a wonderful teacher. The trip to London was a dream come true for Anna. She visited all the famous places she had always wanted to see, and she practiced her English every day, speaking with locals and making new friends. When she returned home, Anna was a different person. She was now confident in speaking English, and her travels had broadened her horizons, giving her a new appreciation for different cultures. Anna never forgot the valuable lessons she learned at the language school, and she continued to practice and improve her English every day. She never stopped dreaming of traveling the world and meeting new people, and she lived the rest of her life with a smile on her face, grateful for the opportunity to learn English and make her dreams come true. Anna's newfound confidence in speaking English opened up many new opportunities for her. She applied for a job at an international company and was soon working as a translator, traveling to different countries and helping people communicate with one another. Anna also joined a local English club, where she met other English learners and native speakers. They would get together once a week to practice speaking English and learn about different cultures. Anna made many new friends through the club, and she was always eager to share her experiences and help others improve their English. One day, Anna was approached by Mrs. Smith, who told her that the language school was looking for a new teacher. Mrs. Smith said that she was retiring and wanted to recommend Anna for the job, as she had been one of her most dedicated students and had a passion for teaching. Anna was thrilled at the opportunity, and she accepted the job without hesitation. She was now able to give back to her community and help others learn English, just as she had done. She was a dedicated and passionate teacher, just like Mrs. Smith, and her students admired and respected her. Years went by, and Anna became known as the best English teacher in the region. She wrote several books on learning English and started to give workshops and seminars to English teachers all over the world. Anna was always eager to learn and improve her skills, and she never stopped dreaming of traveling the world and meeting new people. One day, Anna received an invitation to attend a conference in New York City. The conference was for English teachers from all over the world, and Anna was honored to be a speaker. She flew to New York, where she was greeted by a throng of enthusiastic English learners and teachers. Anna gave a captivating talk about her journey from a small village girl to a world-renowned English teacher. She spoke about her passion for learning and teaching, and about how important it was to never stop dreaming and pursuing one's goals. Her talk was a huge success, and she received a standing ovation from the audience. After the conference, Anna continued to travel the world, sharing her knowledge and experience with others. She became a role model for English learners everywhere, inspiring them to never give up on their dreams and to always strive to improve their skills. Anna lived a long and fulfilling life, surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues who admired and loved her. She left a lasting legacy, not just as an English teacher, but as an inspiration to people all over the world who wanted to improve their lives and pursue their dreams. Years after her passing, Anna's story continues to inspire new generations of English learners, reminding them that with hard work and determination, anything is possible. And that is the story of Anna, the small village girl who became a world-renowned English teacher and a true inspiration to us all.
And suddenly there he was, this tall, quiet boy in a blue and white shirt. I'll always remember the first time I saw him. Donna is on a boat. She is going to Spain with her family for a holiday. On the boat she sees Mark, a tall, good-looking boy. But Mark is very shy and he doesn't talk to her on the boat. Who will help them to meet? Will they be together? Derek Strange writes books and stories for young people. He lives in London with his family. He has one son, his name is Mark. In July 1993, Derek and Mark went to Spain on a boat for a holiday. My story starts in late July. It was July 21st, I think it was the first day of our holiday, a hot July day. I stood in the sun and looked at the sea. It was 11 o'clock in the morning. I was on the boat at Portsmouth with my mother and father and my sister, Louise. Seabirds played near our big boat and the small boats near us on the sea. I started to look at the people with us on our boat. They all watched the seabirds and talked and laughed. They were all happy on the first day of their holiday too. And suddenly there he was, this tall, quiet boy in a blue and white shirt. He was really good looking. I'll always remember the first time I saw him. He didn't see me then. He was with some friends. One of the boys was his brother, I think. They had the same blue eyes, the same mouth and nose, nearly the same hair. His brother and one of the boys with him tried to catch the seabirds and he smiled at them. Then they came and stood near us, and they talked about the small boats on the sea. I watched him over Louise's head all the time. His brother and his friends made a lot of noise, but he was quiet and didn't talk a lot. Then suddenly he looked at me and his eyes stayed quietly on me, and he smiled his lovely smile with his shy blue eyes. The people near me on the boat, the sun, the sea, the birds, the noise of his friends, time, it all stopped. At that moment there was only him and me and him. Him and his smile for me. Only the two of us. Slowly, very slowly, the boat started to move away, across the water to Spain. It takes a day and a night on the boat from Portsmouth to Santander, in Spain. A day and a night together, on the same boat with him. We'll be on this boat for a day and a night. Perhaps I can talk to him before we arrive there, perhaps I'll see him again this evening. It was a big new boat with cafes, shops, a cinema and a disco. In the evening Louise and one went to the disco together. We had a Coke and listened to the music and watched the dancers. But he wasn't there. Then suddenly a tall boy in a black and white shirt came in. It was him. He was with a friend. They stopped and looked slowly at all the people in the disco. It was dark in there and he stood and looked for a long time. Then he saw me and he smiled a big, friendly smile. I wanted to stand up and sing and dance with him. He came across the room and stopped near our table, and he asked me to dance. Suddenly he wasn't shy with me. We danced together for a long time after that. But then I looked up and there was a second tall boy in a blue and white shirt at the door of the disco, with the same eyes and the same mouth and nearly the same hair. But the boy near the door had that nice, quiet, shy face, not a big, open, friendly smile. Suddenly I knew, this was his brother with me on the dance floor, not him. I was with the wrong brother. He stood for a moment near the door and watched me and his brother on the dance floor with sad eyes. I wanted to run to him, to take his sad face in my hands and say sorry. He looked at me, then he went out quickly. I stopped dancing, walked back to my table and sat down. His brother started to dance with Louise. I didn't sleep that night. I thought about him all the time, and listened to the noises of the boat and the sea. In the morning I went to the cafe at 8 o'clock and waited there with my sister for a long time. I wanted to say sorry to him. I had 4 cups of coffee, and I don't really like coffee. But he didn't come. Where was he? Where was he? At 11 o'clock we arrived in Santander. I wanted to stop the boat, I wanted to stop the holiday, I wanted to go back to England. I only wanted to see him again, to talk to him, to ask his name. but he wasn't there. Mark's story. I started Spanish at school in September and I like it. We've got a good teacher, Old Webb. Mr. Webb, not Old Webb, my mother always says to me. He isn't old, you know. Old Webb, sorry, Mr. Webb, always takes some people from our school to a place in Spain for the first 2 weeks of the holidays, every July. Old Webb is okay. Not bad, for a teacher. We were at Portsmouth with Old Webb, sorry, Mr. Webb, and Mrs. Webb. She's from Argentina, all the boys think she's good looking, too. There were 6 of us with the Webbs, Harry Potts and his sister Sonia, Nick Atkins, he's a good friend, Sue Bellamy, she's clever, my brother Dave and me, we're 14 and we're good friends too, usually. There were hundreds of people on the boat. It was hot in the sun, a lovely day. People watched the sea and the small boats. I liked being in the sun and thinking about the 2 weeks holiday in Spain. Old Webb started one of his stories about Argentina, but I didn't listen. I started to look at the people. And this girl was there, near me, a really good-looking girl with nice brown eyes and black hair. I'm really shy and I'm not very good with girls. I didn't talk to her then, but I watched her with her sister and her mother and father. Then they walked away and she smiled at me for a moment before they went. My brother Dave saw her, and he laughed quietly at my red face. I wanted to see her again, perhaps in the cafe at lunchtime, or perhaps in the cinema in the afternoon. But she wasn't there and I don't remember the film. In the evening we had a drink with Old Webb and lovely Lucrezia, that's our name for Mrs. Webb. After that Dave and Harry went to the disco, they wanted to meet some girls. I don't like dancing, but I went to the disco later. I wanted to see her again, the lovely girl with the dancing brown eyes and the nice smile. It was dark in the disco, and I stood near the door and watched the dancers. Then I saw her on the dance floor, and she was with Dave. With my brother, Dave. She smiled at him, too, a lovely smile. I didn't want to watch, I walked out. I went and looked at the sea and thought about things quietly. I thought about her and Dave. I was up early in the morning, before 6 o'clock. I went out again and watched the early morning sun and the sea. There was only one old man and the seabirds there with me. The old man smiled at me, but we didn't talk. I liked being quiet. I went in and had a coffee in the cafe, but I didn't want to eat. All the time I wanted to see her. I wanted her to walk into the cafe and come across to my table and sit down with me and tell me her name and talk to me. But she didn't come. I waited and waited, but she didn't come. At 8 o'clock I went to find Nick and Dave. Dave was very quiet all day, and he was really nice to me. And I didn't see her again before we arrived in Santander at 11. She wasn't there.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Emily. She lived in a small village in the countryside with her parents, 2 older brothers, and their dog, Max. Emily loved spending her days exploring the fields and meadows around her home, and she often went on long walks with Max. One day, Emily and Max came across a beautiful flower that they had never seen before. The flower was tall and had large, bright pink petals. Emily was fascinated by the flower and wanted to learn more about it. She picked a few petals and brought them back to her house. When Emily showed her mother the flower, her mother told her that it was a type of wild rose. Emily was thrilled to have discovered something new, and she couldn't wait to learn more. She asked her mother if she could plant some of the wild rose seeds she had collected, and her mother agreed. Emily planted the seeds in a small garden patch near her house, and she tended to them every day. She watered them, weeded the garden, and made sure they had plenty of sunlight. Before long, the seeds sprouted into tiny seedlings, and Emily was overjoyed. As the weeks went by, the wild roses grew taller and more beautiful. They had bright pink petals and a sweet, fragrant scent. Emily's garden became the talk of the village, and people would often stop by to admire the wild roses. One day, Emily's older brother, Jack, came home from school with a science project. He had to grow a plant and track its growth for several weeks. Jack had chosen to grow a tomato plant, but he was having trouble getting it to grow properly. Emily wanted to help her brother, so she took him to her garden and showed him the wild roses. She explained how she had grown them from seeds and how she had cared for them every day. Jack was impressed by his little sister's knowledge and asked her to help him with his project. Emily agreed, and they worked together to transplant the tomato plant into a larger pot. Emily showed Jack how to water the plant and how to make sure it had enough sunlight. She also taught him how to prune the plant so that it would grow strong and healthy. Over the next few weeks, Jack's tomato plant grew taller and taller. It sprouted tiny green tomatoes, and Jack was thrilled. He couldn't have done it without his little sister's help, and he was grateful to her for teaching him so much. In the end, Emily's garden became a place of learning and discovery for the entire village. People would often stop by to see what new plants she had grown, and Emily would happily share her knowledge with them. Her love of gardening had taught her so much, and she was eager to pass on what she had learned to others. And so, Emily continued to tend to her garden every day, always looking for new plants to grow and new things to learn. She knew that there was always more to discover, and she was eager to explore the world around her. One day, as Emily was tending to her garden, she noticed that one of her favorite flowers had started to wilt. She was saddened by this, as she had grown very fond of the flower and its vibrant colors. She didn't know what to do to save it. Emily's mother noticed her daughter's distress and asked her what was wrong. Emily explained about the wilting flower, and her mother suggested that they ask the village gardener for advice. The village gardener was an older woman who had been tending to the village gardens for many years. She was known for her expertise and knowledge of all kinds of plants. Emily and her mother went to visit the village gardener and showed her the wilting flower. The gardener examined the flower and explained that it needed more water and nutrients. She showed them how to fertilize the soil and how to water the plant properly. Emily was fascinated by the gardener's knowledge and asked her many questions about different plants and how to care for them. The gardener was happy to share her knowledge, and she invited Emily and her mother to come back and visit her garden anytime they wanted. From that day on, Emily spent a lot of time in the gardener's garden, learning about all kinds of plants and how to care for them. She helped the gardener plant new flowers and vegetables, and she was amazed at how much she had learned. The gardener became a mentor and a friend to Emily, and Emily cherished the time she spent with her. As Emily grew older, she continued to tend to her garden and to share her knowledge with others. She started a gardening club for children in the village, and she would teach them how to plant and care for their own gardens. She also started a community garden where people could grow their own vegetables and fruits. Emily's love of gardening had brought her so much joy and fulfillment, and she was happy to share that with others. She knew that there was always more to learn and discover, and she was eager to continue exploring the world of plants and nature. And so, Emily's story became one of growth, learning, and sharing, a story that inspired many others to find their own passions and to share them with the world. As Emily's gardening club grew in popularity, more and more children in the village became interested in learning about plants and gardening. Emily was thrilled to see so many young people getting excited about nature and the environment. She knew that if they learned to love and care for the earth, they would be more likely to protect it in the future. Emily and her club members worked together to plant new flowers and vegetables in the community garden. They learned how to compost food scraps and how to make their own natural fertilizers. They even started a small beekeeping project, learning about the important role that bees play in pollinating plants and producing honey. As Emily and her club members worked together, they formed a strong bond and a sense of community. They were proud of what they had accomplished, and they were excited to continue their work in the future. Emily's love of gardening had also inspired her to pursue a career in botany. She studied plants and their properties in depth, learning about their medicinal and nutritional value. She became an expert in her field and wrote several books on gardening and the environment. Emily's books were a great success, and she was invited to speak at conferences and events around the world. She talked about the importance of caring for the environment and how gardening can be a powerful tool for change. She inspired many people to start their own gardens and to become more involved in environmental causes. As Emily looked back on her life, she was proud of all that she had accomplished. She had started with a simple love of nature and a desire to learn more about the world around her. And through hard work, perseverance, and a deep passion for her subject, she had become an expert in her field and had inspired others to follow in her footsteps. Emily's story is a reminder that we all have the power to make a difference in the world, no matter how small our actions may seem. By following our passions and working together, we can create positive change and leave the world a better place than we found it. As Emily's career continued to flourish, She never forgot the lessons she had learned from the village gardener so many years ago. She continued to visit her old mentor regularly and helped her with her own garden. Together, they shared stories and insights, and Emily was always grateful for the guidance and wisdom her mentor provided. One day, as Emily was tending to the community garden, she noticed a young girl watching her from a distance. The girl was shy and hesitant to approach, but Emily welcomed her with a smile and asked her if she would like to help with the gardening. The girl nodded, and Emily showed her how to plant a seed and water it. As they worked together, Emily talked to the girl about the importance of nature and how plants help us in so many ways. The girl listened with rapt attention, and Emily knew that she had made a connection. Over time, the girl became a regular visitor to the community garden, and Emily took her under her wing. She taught her everything she knew about plants and nature, and the girl blossomed under her care. She became confident and outgoing, and she inspired other children in the village to get involved in gardening. Years passed, and Emily grew old. She knew that she would not be able to tend to the garden forever, but she was comforted by the knowledge that she had inspired others to continue her work. As she looked out over the rows of plants and flowers, she felt a deep sense of peace and contentment. Emily passed away peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by her loved ones. The village held a memorial service for her, and people from all over the region came to pay their respects. They remembered her as a kind and generous woman, who had dedicated her life to making the world a better place. In the years that followed, the community garden continued to flourish, and Emily's legacy lived on. The young girl whom she had taught so much had become a mentor to others, passing on the knowledge and wisdom that Emily had shared with her. And so, the story of Emily came full circle. From a small wilting flower to a thriving community garden, her love of nature and her dedication to the environment had touched the lives of so many. Her story was a testament to the power of passion, perseverance, and the human spirit.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl named Lily. Lily loved to play outside and explore the world around her. She would often go on long walks through the countryside with her parents, marveling at the beauty of the fields and the flowers. One day, as Lily was walking through the woods, she stumbled upon a hidden clearing. In the center of the clearing was a large, beautiful tree with branches that seemed to reach up to the sky. Lily felt drawn to the tree, and she walked closer to it, marveling at its beauty. As she approached the tree, she noticed a small door at the base of the trunk. She opened the door, and to her surprise, she saw a tiny staircase leading up to the top of the tree. Without hesitation, she climbed up the stairs and found herself in a magical treehouse. The treehouse was filled with books, toys, and other treasures, and Lily felt a sense of wonder and awe as she explored it. She knew that she had discovered something truly special, and she resolved to come back to the treehouse as often as she could. Over the next few weeks, Lily visited the treehouse every day, spending hours exploring its nooks and crannies. She would bring her favorite books and toys with her, and she would play and read for hours on end. As time went on, Lily began to notice that there was something special about the treehouse. Whenever she was inside, she felt a sense of peace and tranquility that she had never experienced before. She felt as though she was in a different world, one that was filled with magic and wonder. One day, as Lily was playing in the treehouse, she noticed a book on a nearby shelf. The book was called The Magic of Trees, and Lily felt drawn to it. She opened the book and began to read. The book was filled with stories and legends about trees, and Lily was fascinated by what she read. She learned about the ways that trees communicate with one another, the important role they play in our environment, and the magic and wonder that they bring to the world. As Lily read the book, she realized that she had found her true calling. She wanted to learn as much as she could about trees in the natural world. She wanted to help protect the environment and all the beautiful creatures that lived in it. Over the years, Lily studied hard and became an expert in environmental science. She traveled the world, working to protect forests and wildlife, and spreading the message of conservation to people everywhere. In the end, Lily never forgot the magical treehouse that had inspired her to pursue her dreams. She returned to the clearing many times throughout her life, and every time she did, she felt a sense of wonder and gratitude for the beauty of the natural world. And so, the story of Lily reminds us of the power of imagination and wonder, and the importance of caring for the environment. It shows us that by following our passions and working to protect the world around us, we can create a better, more beautiful world for all. As Lily grew older, she never forgot about the magical treehouse and the lessons she had learned from the book she found there. She became a respected expert in her field and was invited to speak at conferences all around the world. One day, as she was packing for a trip to give a talk in a far-off country, Lily received a phone call from her childhood friend, Sarah. Sarah told her that their old neighborhood was going to be demolished to make way for a new housing development. Lily was devastated. She knew that the woods and fields where she had spent so many happy hours as a child would be destroyed, along with all the creatures that called them home. Determined to make a difference, Lily canceled her trip and returned to her hometown. She reached out to her friends and colleagues, and together they organized a protest against the development. Thanks to their efforts, the developers eventually agreed to spare the woods and fields. Instead, they built a new housing development in a nearby area, leaving the natural spaces untouched. Lily felt a sense of pride and accomplishment as she looked out over the woods and fields that had been saved. She knew that her passion for the environment had made a difference, and she felt grateful for the magic of the treehouse that had inspired her to pursue her dreams. And so, the story of Lily teaches us that even the smallest actions can make a big difference. By following our passions and standing up for what we believe in, we can create a better world for ourselves and for future generations. Years passed, and Lily continued to work tirelessly in the field of environmental science. She traveled the world, visiting rainforests, deserts, and oceans to study the delicate ecosystems that make our planet so unique. Despite all her efforts, she couldn't help but feel a sense of despair as she saw the destruction of natural habitats and the loss of countless species. But she never gave up hope. She knew that change was possible, and she continued to work tirelessly to protect the environment. One day, as she was preparing to give a talk at a conference, Lily received a surprise visit from her childhood friend, Sarah. Sarah had always been passionate about the environment, and she had recently started a non-profit organization to promote conservation and sustainability. Sarah told Lily about her new organization, and how they were working to promote renewable energy and reduce waste in their community. Lily was thrilled to hear about her friend's efforts, and she felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. Over the years, Lily and Sarah continued to work together, fighting for a better world for themselves and for future generations. They inspired countless others to take action and make a difference in their own communities. And as they looked out over the beautiful natural world that they had fought so hard to protect, Lily and Sarah felt a sense of gratitude for the magical treehouse that had started it all. In the end, the story of Lily and Sarah teaches us that even the smallest actions can have a ripple effect, inspiring others to make a difference in the world. It reminds us of the power of passion and the importance of standing up for what we believe in, and it encourages us to protect the natural world that sustains us all. As the years went by, Lily and Sarah's passion for the environment only grew stronger. They continued to work together, collaborating on research projects and community initiatives that promoted conservation and sustainability. Their efforts paid off, and they were eventually recognized as leaders in their field. They were invited to speak at prestigious conferences and seminars, and their research was published in academic journals around the world. Lily's work also caught the attention of a wealthy philanthropist, who admired her dedication to the environment and offered to fund her research. With the support of this generous donor, Lily was able to launch a new project that aimed to protect an endangered species of bird. The project was a huge success, and the bird population began to recover. News of Lily's work spread quickly, and she was soon invited to share her findings with other researchers and conservationists. But despite all her accomplishments, Lily never forgot the lessons she had learned from the magical treehouse. She knew that the natural world was fragile, and that it needed to be protected for future generations. One day, as she was walking through the woods near her childhood home, Lily stumbled upon the old treehouse. It was still there, standing tall and proud amidst the trees. Lily climbed up to the treehouse and sat down on the old wooden floor. She looked out over the forest that she had known and loved for so long, and she felt a sense of peace and contentment. As she sat there, lost in thought, Lily heard a rustling in the branches above her. She looked up to see a beautiful bird perched on a nearby branch, looking down at her with bright, curious eyes. Lily smiled and waved to the bird, feeling a sense of joy and wonder at the beauty of the natural world. She knew that the work she had done had helped to protect this bird and others like it, and she felt grateful for the opportunity to make a difference. And so, the story of Lily and the magical treehouse comes full circle, reminding us of the power of passion, the importance of standing up for what we believe in, and the beauty of the natural world. It teaches us that by working together and taking action, we can make a difference in the world and create a better future for ourselves and for future generations.
Maria was a maid who worked for the wealthy Valet family. She had been working for them for a few years and was well liked by everyone in the house. The Valet family was known for their extravagant parties, and tonight was no exception. The whole house was decorated with flowers, and the table was set with the finest china and silverware. As the guests arrived, Maria was busy serving drinks and appetizers. Suddenly, she noticed that Mrs. Valet's diamond necklace was missing from her neck. She immediately informed Mr. Valet, who ordered all the doors to be locked and the guests to be searched. As they searched the guests, the necklace was nowhere to be found. The police were called, and they started their investigation. Maria was questioned, as were all the guests. However, nobody seemed to know anything about the missing necklace. The next morning, Maria was surprised when she found the necklace on her bedside table. She was shocked and confused and wondered how it had ended up there. She immediately informed Mr. Valet, who was relieved to have the necklace back. However, he was also suspicious and asked Maria how she had come to possess the necklace. Maria had no idea, but she remembered seeing a strange man at the party. He had been lurking in the shadows and had been wearing a black suit and hat. She had not seen him after that and assumed that he had left the party. Mr. Valet asked the police to investigate this new lead, and they were able to track down the man in the black suit. He was a private investigator named Jack, who had been hired by Mrs. Valet to keep an eye on her husband. She suspected that he was having an affair and wanted to catch him in the act. Jack was surprised when the police came to question him about the necklace. He had no idea what they were talking about and denied having anything to do with it. However, the police were persistent, and they searched his apartment, where they found the missing necklace. Jack finally confessed that he had taken the necklace while he was searching Mr. Valet's room. He had been hired to look for evidence of the affair, but he had found the necklace instead. He had panicked and had taken it with him, intending to return it once he had gathered enough evidence. The police arrested Jack, and Mr. Valet was relieved to have the necklace back. However, he was also saddened to learn that his wife had hired a private investigator to spy on him. He confronted her, and they had a long conversation about their marriage. In the end, the mystery of the missing necklace was solved, but it had revealed a deeper problem in the Valets' marriage. They both realized that they needed to work on their relationship and communicate better if they wanted to stay together. Maria was relieved that she was no longer a suspect and was happy to see that the Valets were going to work on their marriage. She continued to work for them and was glad to see that they were able to move on from this incident. As the investigation came to a close, Mr. and Mrs. Valet were left to confront the issues that had brought them to this point. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. They discussed the root causes of their issues and how they could work together to improve their marriage. They acknowledged that they had both neglected their relationship and that they needed to prioritize it if they wanted to stay together. Maria was happy to see the couple working on their marriage. She had grown fond of them during her time working for them and wanted them to be happy. However, she couldn't help but feel uneasy about the private investigator's role in the whole ordeal. She wondered if Mr. and Mrs. Valet would have been able to work through their issues without the necklace incident. The police investigation had raised many questions about the Valets' marriage. The detectives had uncovered evidence of Mr. Valet's infidelity, and it was clear that his wife had been suspicious for some time. The missing necklace had just been the catalyst that brought everything to the surface. In the days that followed, the Valets worked hard to repair their relationship. They made an effort to communicate more openly and honestly with each other. They went on dates and spent more quality time together. They sought counseling to help them work through their issues and find a way forward. Maria noticed a change in the atmosphere of the house. The tension that had once been so thick was slowly dissipating. The Valets were laughing and joking again, and there was a sense of joy in the air that had been missing for a long time. As time passed, the Valets continued to work on their relationship, and it showed. They were happier and more in love than they had been in years. They renewed their wedding vows in a small ceremony with only their closest friends and family. Maria was honored to be included in the celebration. The missing diamond necklace had been the catalyst for change in the Valets' marriage, but it had also had a profound effect on Maria. She had always been a quiet and reserved person, but the events of the past few weeks had forced her to confront her own fears and insecurities. She had faced the possibility of being accused of a crime she hadn't committed and had come out on the other side stronger and more confident. Maria had also learned a valuable lesson about the importance of honesty and communication. She had seen firsthand the damage that could be done when people kept secrets from each other. She vowed to be more open and honest in her own life and relationships. As the months passed, Maria continued to work for the Valets. They had become more than just her employers, they were her friends. She felt honored to be a part of their lives and to have witnessed the transformation of their marriage. In the end, the missing diamond necklace had brought about a positive change in everyone's lives. It had forced the Valets to confront their issues and work on their marriage, and it had given Maria the courage to be more honest and open in her own life. It was a reminder that even the most difficult and trying situations could lead to growth and transformation. One day, several months after the incident with the missing necklace, Maria received an unexpected phone call from Mrs. Valet. Her voice was shaking with emotion as she shared the news that Mr. Valet had passed away in his sleep. Maria was shocked and saddened by the news. She had grown close to the couple and had witnessed firsthand the love they had for each other. She couldn't imagine the pain that Mrs. Valet must be feeling. Over the next few days, Maria spent time with Mrs. Valet, providing support and comfort in any way she could. They reminisced about Mr. Valet's life, and Mrs. Valet shared stories of their time together. As they went through his belongings, they came across a small box that Mr. Valet had kept hidden away. Inside the box was a note addressed to Mrs. Valet, along with the diamond necklace that had caused so much turmoil in their lives. Mrs. Valet was stunned. She couldn't understand why her husband had kept the necklace all this time, especially after everything that had happened. She opened the note and read it carefully. In the letter, Mr. Valet had written about his regret over his infidelity and how much he loved his wife. He had wanted to make things right, but he didn't know how. As Mrs. Valet read the letter, she realized that her husband had kept the necklace as a symbol of his love and commitment to their marriage. It was a way for him to show her that he was willing to do whatever it took to make things right between them. In the end, the missing diamond necklace had brought about a profound change in the Valets' marriage. It had been the catalyst for their transformation and had led to a deeper understanding and appreciation of their love for each other. As Maria reflected on the events that had unfolded, she realized that sometimes the things we hold dear can also be the things that cause us the most pain. It was a reminder that in the face of hardship and adversity, it was important to hold on to the things that truly mattered: love, honesty, and forgiveness. The story of the missing diamond necklace had come full circle, and Maria was grateful to have been a part of it. She had witnessed the power of love and the transformative nature of forgiveness. It was a lesson that she would carry with her for the rest of her life.
Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a wealthy lady named Mrs. Johnson. She was a widow and the owner of a grand mansion that was the envy of the village. Mrs. Johnson was known for her love of jewelry, especially her diamond necklace, which was worth a fortune. One morning, Mrs. Johnson woke up to find that her beloved diamond necklace was missing. She searched the entire house but couldn't find it. She immediately called the village police to report the theft. The village police arrived at the mansion and began their investigation. The police interviewed everyone who had been in the mansion the previous night, including the housekeeper, the butler, and the gardener. They also questioned the neighboring houses to see if anyone had seen or heard anything suspicious. However, no one had seen anything out of the ordinary. The police noticed that the window in Mrs. Johnson's bedroom was open, but there were no signs of forced entry. They searched the area around the window and found footprints leading away from the mansion. The footprints appeared to be those of a man. The police followed the footprints and found a man named John, who lived in the neighboring village. John was known for his criminal activities, but the police couldn't find any evidence that linked him to the theft. They released him, but they continued to investigate. Days turned into weeks, and the police were no closer to solving the case. Mrs. Johnson had lost all hope of ever finding her diamond necklace. However, one day, a young girl named Alice, who worked in the local bakery, came forward and said that she had found the diamond necklace. Alice explained that she had been walking home from work when she noticed something shiny in a nearby bush. She had gone to investigate and found the diamond necklace. Alice had recognized the necklace from the posters that had been put up all over the village, and she immediately returned it to Mrs. Johnson. The police were ecstatic to hear that the necklace had been found, but they were still puzzled as to how it had ended up in the bush. They decided to question Alice further, and it was then that she revealed that she had seen someone running away from the mansion on the night of the theft. Alice described the person she had seen as a tall man with a long beard, but she couldn't give any more details. The police began to investigate once again, and this time, they found a clue that had been missed earlier. They found a piece of torn cloth on the fence that surrounded Mrs. Johnson's mansion. The cloth was similar to the clothing worn by the gardener. The police questioned the gardener, who initially denied any involvement in the theft. However, when presented with the evidence, he broke down and confessed. He revealed that he had taken the diamond necklace, but he had hidden it in the bush because he couldn't sell it due to the high level of publicity around the theft. The police were able to retrieve the necklace, and Mrs. Johnson was overjoyed to have it back. The gardener was arrested, and justice was served. From that day on, Mrs. Johnson made sure to keep her valuable possessions safe and secure. The village was no longer troubled by thefts, and everyone lived happily ever after. However, the mystery of the diamond necklace theft left a lasting impression on the villagers. Rumors started to spread about the identity of the tall man with the long beard that Alice had seen running away from the mansion. Some villagers suspected that he was a professional thief who had been hired to steal the necklace, while others believed that he was a local resident who had fallen on hard times. Despite the rumors, the police were never able to identify the tall man with the long beard. However, his sighting inspired the police to conduct a more extensive search in the surrounding areas. They discovered that several other robberies had taken place in the neighboring villages, which had gone unnoticed until now. The police department of the village joined forces with the police of the neighboring areas to investigate the burglaries. After weeks of investigation, the team was able to identify the tall man with the long beard as a notorious thief, who was responsible for several robberies in the area. He was finally arrested and brought to justice, which led to a significant decrease in criminal activities in the area. The villagers were grateful for the police department's efforts, and they felt safer knowing that the culprit was behind bars. The disappearance of the diamond necklace had led to a significant breakthrough in solving other criminal cases in the area. The police had become more vigilant and had started working together to fight crime. The villagers felt a sense of unity, and they appreciated the efforts of the police to keep their community safe. Mrs. Johnson had become an inspiration to the villagers, as she had shown strength and resilience during the difficult times. She had never given up hope of finding her diamond necklace and had kept the faith that justice would be served. Her attitude had encouraged the villagers to be more optimistic and to trust in the power of hope. The disappearance of the diamond necklace had brought about a positive change in the village. The villagers had learned to work together, trust each other, and to appreciate the little things in life. They had overcome their fear of crime and had learned to appreciate the efforts of the police department. The village had transformed into a safer and more prosperous community, where the residents looked out for each other and worked together to achieve common goals. The disappearance of the diamond necklace had been a significant turning point for the village, and it had brought about a positive change that had a lasting impact on the community. The mystery of the diamond necklace theft had been solved, but the impact of the case was felt for years to come. The village had become a more prosperous and safer place, and the residents continued to work together to achieve common goals. Months had passed since the tall man with the long beard had been apprehended, and life had settled into a peaceful routine for the village. However, one day, a new mystery presented itself. Mrs. Johnson had received an anonymous note in her mailbox, which read, "I know where your diamond necklace is. Meet me at midnight at the abandoned factory on the outskirts of the village, and I'll return it to you." Mrs. Johnson was stunned by the message and immediately notified the police. The police were skeptical but decided to investigate the abandoned factory, which had been empty for several years. They found nothing out of the ordinary and concluded that it was probably a prank or an attempt to extort money from Mrs. Johnson. However, Mrs. Johnson was not convinced and decided to investigate the matter further. She remembered that the tall man with the long beard had spoken of a hidden treasure that he had hidden somewhere in the village. She decided to conduct her investigation and started searching for clues. She visited the places where the tall man had been seen and asked around for any information that could help her solve the mystery. Days turned into weeks, and Mrs. Johnson had no luck in finding any clues. She was about to give up when she received another anonymous note in her mailbox. It read, "You're on the right track, Mrs. Johnson. Keep searching, and you'll find what you're looking for." Mrs. Johnson was determined to solve the mystery and decided to continue her search. One day, she remembered a conversation she had overheard between the tall man and another person. They had talked about a hidden room in the abandoned factory, where the tall man had hidden the treasure. Mrs. Johnson realized that this could be the clue she had been searching for and decided to investigate the abandoned factory again. She searched the factory thoroughly and found a hidden room behind a false wall. Inside the room, she found a large safe, which was locked. She realized that this was probably where the tall man had hidden the stolen treasure, including her diamond necklace. Mrs. Johnson decided to call the police and have them investigate the safe. The police arrived, and after several attempts, they were finally able to crack the safe. Inside, they found a large collection of stolen goods, including jewelry, antiques, and cash. They also found Mrs. Johnson's diamond necklace, which had been missing for months. The police were amazed by Mrs. Johnson's persistence and determination to solve the mystery. They praised her for her bravery and encouraged her to continue her search for clues in the future. The mystery of the hidden treasure had been solved, and the villagers were once again amazed by Mrs. Johnson's resilience and courage. She had shown the villagers that anything was possible if they had the determination and courage to pursue their goals. The village had become a better place because of Mrs. Johnson's perseverance and the police's diligence in pursuing justice. The villagers felt safer knowing that the criminals were being caught, and justice was being served. Mrs. Johnson had become a hero in the eyes of the villagers, and they looked up to her with admiration and respect. The mystery of the hidden treasure had been solved, but the impact of Mrs. Johnson's actions would be felt for years to come. The village had become a more resilient and determined community, and the residents continued to work together to achieve their common goals. The mystery had brought them together, and they were stronger for it. As news of Mrs. Johnson's discovery spread throughout the village, the people began to see her in a new light. She was no longer just the quiet, unassuming widow who kept to herself. She was now a hero, a symbol of the community's resilience in the face of adversity. The village began to hold her in high regard, and many looked to her for guidance and inspiration. Mrs. Johnson, for her part, was humbled by the attention and the responsibility that came with it. She knew that she had to continue to set a good example and work to make the village an even better place to live. She decided to use the money that had been recovered from the hidden safe to fund community projects, such as a new playground for the children and a community garden for all to enjoy. She also worked with the police to set up a neighborhood watch program, which would help keep the village safe from future crimes. In the end, the village became a shining example of what a community could achieve when they worked together. The people became more united, and the sense of pride and ownership of their village grew stronger. Crime rates dropped significantly, and the village became a much safer place to live. Mrs. Johnson continued to be an inspiration to the people of the village, and she was loved and respected by all. Her determination and courage had brought the community together, and they were all better for it. She had turned what could have been a tragedy into an opportunity to make the village a better place. Years later, Mrs. Johnson passed away, but her legacy lived on. The community continued to thrive, and her name became synonymous with courage, determination, and community spirit. She would always be remembered as the woman who solved the mystery of the hidden treasure and who had helped bring the village together.
Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Jack who had always been fascinated by the stars. Every night he would lay outside on his backyard, looking up at the sky and dreaming of what was out there. One night, as he was staring at the constellations, he saw a bright flash in the distance. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Jack was curious and decided to investigate. He set off on his adventure, determined to discover what lay beyond the stars. Jack had always been a curious boy, and he had read many books on space and astronomy. He knew that the journey ahead of him would be long and difficult, but he was determined to see it through. Jack packed his backpack with food, water, and all the supplies he would need for his journey. As Jack traveled deeper into space, he encountered many strange and wonderful things. He saw planets that were different colors and sizes, and he watched as asteroids and comets flew past him. Jack was amazed by the beauty of space and felt privileged to be able to witness it. As he continued his journey, Jack saw a planet that looked very much like Earth. He decided to land and explore the planet. As he stepped off his spacecraft, he noticed that the atmosphere was different from what he was used to. He took a deep breath, and the air tasted sweet and pure. Jack walked around the planet and was surprised to find that it was inhabited by creatures that were completely different from humans. They were tall, thin, and had large eyes. Jack approached one of the creatures, and to his surprise, it spoke to him in English. The creature introduced itself as Zon and explained that its planet was called Zephyr. Zon told Jack that the inhabitants of Zephyr had been monitoring Earth for a long time, and they had always been fascinated by humans. Zon and Jack spent many hours talking about their respective planets and cultures, and Jack learned a lot about the Zephyrians. After a few days on Zephyr, Jack realized that he needed to continue his journey. Zon gave him some supplies and wished him luck. As Jack traveled deeper into space, he encountered many challenges. He ran out of food and water, and his spacecraft suffered from a malfunction. However, he refused to give up and continued to press on. Finally, after many long weeks, Jack reached his destination. He had arrived at a black hole. He had read about black holes in his books and knew that they were the most mysterious and dangerous objects in space. He was scared, but also excited to see one in person. Jack watched as his spacecraft was pulled closer and closer to the black hole, and he felt a force that was unlike anything he had ever experienced before. Finally, after many long weeks, Jack reached his destination. He had arrived at a black hole. He had read about black holes in his books and knew that they were the most mysterious and dangerous objects in space. He was scared, but also excited to see one in person. Jack watched as his spacecraft was pulled closer and closer to the black hole, and he felt a force that was unlike anything he had ever experienced before. Suddenly, Jack was surrounded by a bright light. He was confused and scared, but he could see that he was being transported to another dimension. He watched as the stars and galaxies around him disappeared, and he found himself in a completely new and unfamiliar place. Jack didn't know what to do, but he was determined to find his way back to Earth. He explored this new dimension and encountered many strange creatures and objects. Finally, he met a wise old being who told him that he needed to find a special object called the cosmic key in order to return to his own dimension.
Jack spent months searching for the cosmic key. He explored new planets, encountered hostile creatures, and faced many challenges. But finally, he found it. The cosmic key was a small, glowing orb that he held in his hand. As he looked at it, he felt a surge of energy that he had never felt before. Earth and eager to share his adventures with others, Jack landed his spacecraft in his backyard, and his parents were shocked to see him after such a long absence. They hugged him tightly and asked him where he had been. Jack told his parents all about his adventures in space. He told them about the strange creatures he had encountered, the planets he had visited, and the challenges he had faced. His parents were amazed by his stories and proud of their adventurous son. From that day on, Jack became known as the space explorer in his town. He gave talks and presentations about his adventures, inspiring others to explore the mysteries of the universe. Jack had discovered that there was so much more to space than he had ever imagined, and he was eager to share his knowledge and experiences with others. As the years went by, Jack continued to explore space, visiting new planets and encountering new creatures. He never forgot the lessons he had learned during his first journey, and he always approached his adventures with a sense of wonder and respect. Jack's adventures inspired a whole generation of young people to become interested in space exploration. He had shown them that there was an entire universe waiting to be discovered and that anyone could become a space explorer if they had the courage and determination to do so. In the end, Jack had achieved his childhood dream of discovering what lay beyond the stars. He had proven that the mysteries of the universe were not just for scientists and experts but for anyone with an open mind and a sense of adventure. Jack's legacy would continue for generations to come, inspiring new space explorers to follow in his footsteps and discover the wonders of the universe. As Jack grew older, he never lost his love for space exploration. He spent much of his time reading books about the latest discoveries in space and following the latest missions to explore other planets. He became an advocate for space exploration and believed that it was the key to understanding our place in the universe. Jack also continued to travel to space, but this time as part of a team of explorers. He joined a group of scientists and engineers who were exploring a distant planet called Kepler 452b. This planet was located in a habitable zone around a star similar to our Sun, which meant that it had conditions that could support life. The mission to Kepler 452b was long and challenging. It took several years to travel to the planet, and the team faced many obstacles along the way. But Jack was determined to reach the planet and to be part of this historic mission. When the team finally arrived at Kepler 452b, they were amazed by what they found. The planet had a similar atmosphere to Earth, with oxygen and nitrogen making up most of the air. There were also oceans, mountains, and forests, and the team saw many species of plants and animals that they had never seen before. The team spent several months on the planet, exploring its various regions and collecting data. They discovered that the planet had a complex ecosystem and that there were many similarities between life on Kepler 452b and life on Earth. Jack was particularly fascinated by the creatures that they encountered on the planet. He saw animals that could fly, swim, and crawl, and he marveled at their beauty and diversity. Jack knew that this mission would change the way that we thought about space exploration and that it would open up new opportunities for discovery. After the mission was over, Jack returned to Earth, where he continued to advocate for space exploration. He spoke to schools, universities, and government agencies, urging them to invest in space exploration and to support the next generation of space explorers. Jack also wrote a book about his adventures, which became a bestseller. The book inspired many young people to become interested in space exploration, and it led to a renewed interest in space programs around the world. Jack also wrote a book about his adventures, which became a bestseller. The book inspired many young people to become interested in space exploration, and it led to a renewed interest in space programs around the world. As the years went by, Jack became known as one of the greatest space explorers of all time. He had inspired a generation of scientists and engineers, and his legacy would continue for generations to come. In the end, Jack had achieved his childhood dream of discovering what lay beyond the stars. He had shown that anything was possible if you had the courage and determination to pursue your dreams. He had also shown that space exploration was not just for experts and scientists but for anyone with an open mind and a sense of adventure. Jack had left a lasting legacy in the world of space exploration, and his impact would be felt for many years to come. He had inspired countless young people to follow in his footsteps and to pursue their own dreams of exploring the universe. And he had shown that there was so much more to space than we had ever imagined, waiting to be discovered by those with the courage to explore it. As Jack entered his later years, he reflected on his life's work and accomplishments. He knew that he had achieved his childhood dream of exploring the universe, and he was grateful for the opportunities he had been given. One day, Jack was invited to attend a conference on space exploration. At the conference, he was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award for his contributions to the field of space exploration. Jack was humbled by the recognition, and he felt proud of all that he had accomplished. During the conference, Jack was also given the opportunity to speak to a group of young people who were interested in space exploration. He spoke about his adventures and shared his insights into the mysteries of the universe. He urged the young people to pursue their dreams and to explore the unknown, just as he had done. At the end of his speech, Jack made a surprising announcement. He had decided to donate all of his earnings from his book to a new space exploration program. The program would provide funding for young people who were interested in space exploration, allowing them to pursue their dreams and to make new discoveries. The announcement was met with thunderous applause, and Jack was overwhelmed by the response. He knew that his legacy would continue, even after he was gone, and that he had made a difference in the world of space exploration. In his final years, Jack continued to follow the latest missions to explore the universe. He watched as new discoveries were made and as new frontiers were explored. He was grateful for the opportunities he had been given, and he was proud to have been a part of such an exciting and important field. On Jack's final day, he was surrounded by his family and friends. He knew that his time on Earth was coming to an end, but he was at peace with what he had accomplished. He had lived a life filled with adventure and discovery, and he had made a difference in the world. As Jack closed his eyes for the last time, he thought about the universe that he had explored and the mysteries that he had uncovered. He knew that there was so much more waiting to be discovered, and he was grateful to have been a part of that journey. Jack's legacy would continue for generations to come, inspiring new space explorers to follow in his footsteps and to explore the wonders of the universe. He had proven that anything was possible if you had the courage and determination to pursue your dreams. And he had shown that there was so much more to space than we had ever imagined, waiting to be discovered by those with the courage to explore it. As the stars twinkled in the night sky, a new generation of space explorers looked up and dreamed of the possibilities that lay beyond. They knew that they had a legacy to live up to, and they were ready to take on the challenges of exploring the universe. And they knew that they had Jack to thank for paving the way and inspiring them to reach for the stars.
Max and Lucy were the best of friends. They did everything together, from playing at the park to going on adventures in the forest. Max was a big, lovable golden retriever, and Lucy was a spunky little girl with a wild imagination. One day, Max and Lucy decided to go on a camping trip in the forest. They packed their bags with tents, sleeping bags, and all the food they could carry. Max carried the heavy bags in his mouth, while Lucy skipped happily alongside him. As they walked through the forest, they saw all kinds of animals. They saw squirrels playing in the trees, birds flying overhead, and even a deer drinking from a stream. Max was curious about all the new smells, and Lucy was fascinated by the beauty of nature. When they arrived at their campsite, Max and Lucy set up their tent and built a fire. They roasted marshmallows and told stories by the campfire until they were tired. Then they crawled into their sleeping bags and fell asleep under the stars. In the middle of the night, Max heard a strange noise. He woke up and sniffed the air, trying to figure out what it was. Lucy woke up too, and together they listened carefully. They heard the noise again, and this time they knew what it was a wolf. Max barked loudly, trying to scare the wolf away. Lucy was scared too, but she knew that Max would protect her. She hugged him tightly, and together they waited for the wolf to go away. The wolf circled their campsite, growling and snarling. Max barked and growled back, showing the wolf that he was not afraid. The wolf finally gave up and slunk away into the forest. Max and Lucy breathed a sigh of relief. They hugged each other tightly, grateful for each other's company. They knew that they were safe as long as they had each other. The next morning, Max and Lucy woke up to the sound of birds singing. They had breakfast and packed up their campsite, ready for a new adventure. As they walked through the forest, they saw all kinds of things, a rabbit hopping through the grass, a snake slithering across their path, and even a family of raccoons playing in a tree. Max and Lucy continued on their adventure, never knowing what they would find next. They were happy just to be together, enjoying each other's company and the beauty of nature. At the end of their journey, Max and Lucy sat by a waterfall, watching the water cascade down the rocks. Lucy hugged Max tightly and whispered, "Thank you for protecting me, Max. You're the best friend I could ever ask for." Max wagged his tail happily, knowing that he had done his job. He licked Lucy's face, and she laughed, feeling the joy of being alive. Together, they sat by the waterfall, content to be together in this moment. And so, Max and Lucy continued on their adventures, exploring the world and discovering new wonders. They knew that they would always be together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. For they were the best of friends, and nothing could ever change that. As Max and Lucy sat by the waterfall, they saw a group of butterflies fluttering nearby. Lucy's eyes lit up with excitement. "Max, look at all those butterflies. Do you think we can catch one?" Max barked and wagged his tail in agreement. He loved to chase butterflies, and he knew that Lucy would have fun too. So they ran after the butterflies, laughing and playing in the sun. As they chased the butterflies, Max and Lucy stumbled upon a hidden cave. The entrance was covered in vines and rocks, and it looked like no one had ever been there before. Lucy's curiosity got the best of her, and she ran towards the cave. Max followed closely behind, his senses alert for any danger. Inside the cave, Max and Lucy found a hidden treasure trove. There were ancient artifacts, gold coins, and even a map that led to a secret location. Lucy's eyes widened with excitement as she realized that they had stumbled upon a treasure hunt. "Max, we have to follow this map. It could lead us to even more treasure," Lucy exclaimed. Max barked happily and wagged his tail. He was always up for an adventure, especially if it involved treasure. So they set off on the treasure hunt, following the map through winding paths and hidden trails. Along the way, Max and Lucy encountered all kinds of obstacles. They had to cross treacherous rivers, climb steep mountains, and even avoid dangerous animals. But they never gave up, always pushing forward towards the treasure. Finally, after days of travel, Max and Lucy arrived at the secret location. It was a hidden cave, deep in the heart of the forest. Inside the cave, they found a treasure chest filled with jewels, gold, and ancient artifacts. Lucy's eyes widened with amazement. "Max, we did it. We found the treasure." Max barked happily, his tail wagging with joy. He was proud of himself and Lucy for accomplishing such a great feat. Together, they basked in the glory of their victory, reveling in the treasure that lay before them. But their joy was short-lived. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise from outside the cave. It was the sound of someone approaching, and it sounded like they meant business. Max barked and growled, ready to defend Lucy and their treasure. As the noise got closer, Max and Lucy realized that it was a group of bandits. They were armed with swords and guns, and they looked dangerous. Max barked and snarled, showing the bandits that he was not afraid. Lucy stood behind him, clutching her backpack tightly. The bandits surrounded Max and Lucy, their eyes glinting with greed. "Give us the treasure, and we'll let you live," one of the bandits said. Max barked and lunged at the bandit, showing him that he would not back down. The bandits were surprised by Max's ferocity, and they hesitated for a moment. Lucy took advantage of the moment and ran towards the entrance of the cave. "Run, Max. We have to get out of here," Lucy shouted. Max barked and followed her, his heart pounding with adrenaline. They ran through the forest, the bandits hot on their trail. Max barked and growled, showing the bandits that he was not afraid to fight. Finally, after what seemed like hours of running, Max and Lucy arrived back at their campsite. They collapsed on the ground, panting and exhausted. But they were alive, and that was all that mattered. As they sat by the campfire, recovering from their ordeal, Max and Lucy realized that they had learned an important lesson. Treasure was not worth risking their lives for, and that their friendship and companionship was the true treasure. "Max, I'm so glad we made it out of there alive," Lucy said, tears of relief in her eyes. Max barked and nuzzled her, letting her know that he was happy to be by her side. He was grateful for the adventure, but he knew that he would never risk his life or Lucy's for treasure again. From that day on, Max and Lucy continued to explore the world around them, but they did so with caution and a newfound respect for the dangers that lurked in the unknown. They also made sure to appreciate the simple things in life, like a good meal, a comfortable bed, and each other's company. As they sat by the campfire, watching the stars twinkle in the sky, Max and Lucy knew that they had formed an unbreakable bond that would last a lifetime. They had been through so much together, and they had come out stronger for it. "Max, do you remember when we first met?" Lucy asked, her eyes full of nostalgia. Max barked and wagged his tail, his mind flashing back to the day when he had first met Lucy. He had been wandering the streets, looking for a home, when he had come across her. She had been sitting on a bench, crying, and he had immediately felt drawn to her. "I remember it like it was yesterday," Lucy said, a smile on her face. "I was so sad and alone, and then you came along and changed everything. You've been my best friend ever since." Max barked and licked her face, letting her know that he felt the same way. He was grateful to have found Lucy, and he knew that he would never let anything happen to her. As they settled in for the night, Max and Lucy fell asleep under the stars, dreaming of the adventures that lay ahead. They knew that there would be more challenges and dangers to face, but they also knew that they could face anything together. For Max and Lucy, the true treasure was their friendship and the bond that they had formed. And that was something that no amount of gold or jewels could ever replace. Over the years, Max and Lucy continued to explore the world, taking on many more adventures and experiencing a lifetime of memories together. They never forgot the lessons they had learned on that fateful journey to find treasure, and they made sure to always value their lives and each other above all else. As they grew old, Max slowed down, and his body became weaker. He could no longer run as fast or jump as high as he once could, but Lucy never left his side. She was always there to comfort him, to give him hugs, and to make sure that he was happy. One day, Max closed his eyes and drifted off to sleep for the final time. Lucy was devastated, but she knew that Max had lived a long and fulfilling life. She also knew that he would always be with her, in her heart and in her memories. As she sat by his side, tears streaming down her face, Lucy thought back on all the adventures they had shared, and she knew that their bond was unbreakable. She would never forget the lessons they had learned and the love they had shared. Max may have been just a dog, but to Lucy, he was so much more. He was her faithful companion, her protector, and her best friend. He had changed her life in so many ways, and she was forever grateful for the time they had shared. In the end, Lucy realized that the true treasure in life was not gold or jewels, but the love and friendship of those closest to us. And she knew that she had been lucky to have had Max by her side, sharing in all of life's adventures with her. With a heavy heart, Lucy said her final goodbye to Max, but she knew that he would always be with her, watching over her and guiding her on her future adventures. She would never forget the lessons they had learned, the memories they had shared, and the love they had for each other. And so, with a renewed sense of purpose and determination, Lucy set out to continue exploring the world, knowing that Max would always be by her side, in spirit and in memory. Once upon a time, in a small village nestled in a green valley, there lived a young boy named Peter. Peter was an ordinary boy, with messy brown hair, bright blue eyes, and a freckled face. He lived with his parents in a small house at the edge of the village, where they ran a small farm. Peter's parents were hard-working people who had taught him the value of hard work and honesty from a young age. They had instilled in him a strong sense of responsibility and a deep respect for the land they farmed. Peter spent most of his days helping his parents on the farm, tending to the animals and crops, and learning the skills he would need to run the farm when he was older. But Peter had a secret dream, a dream that he had never shared with anyone, not even his parents. Peter dreamed of becoming a writer. He loved to read, and he spent every spare moment he had devouring books. He loved the way words could transport him to other worlds and the way stories could make him feel things he had never felt before. One day, as Peter was walking through the village, he saw a sign in the window of the local bookstore. The sign said that the store was looking for a part-time employee to help with inventory and customer service. Peter's heart leapt with excitement. He had always loved that bookstore, and the idea of working there was like a dream come true. Peter gathered his courage and walked into the bookstore, his heart racing. The owner of the store, an older woman named Mrs. Thompson, greeted him warmly and listened as he explained his interest in the job. Mrs. Thompson was impressed by Peter's enthusiasm and offered him the job on the spot. Peter was overjoyed. He had never felt so happy and grateful in his life. For the next few weeks, he spent his afternoons and weekends working in the bookstore. He loved every minute of it, from the smell of the books to the conversations he had with customers. One day, as Peter was restocking the shelves, he noticed a dusty old book sitting on a top shelf, far out of reach. It was an old leather-bound book with no title on the spine. Curiosity getting the best of him, Peter climbed up a ladder and reached for the book. As he opened the book, a cloud of dust rose up, making him cough and sneeze. The book was filled with beautiful illustrations and stories that Peter had never seen before. He started to read, and as he did, he felt as though he was being transported to another world. The stories were magical, and he couldn't put the book down. He read the entire book in one sitting, and when he was finished, he knew that he had to share the stories with others. Peter talked to Mrs. Thompson, and she agreed to let him display the book in the store. The book became an instant hit, and customers started coming to the store just to see the book and read the stories. Peter was thrilled to see people enjoying the book, and he knew that he had found his true calling. From that day forward, Peter spent all of his free time writing stories. He wrote about dragons and princesses, pirates and adventurers. He wrote stories about love and loss, hope and despair. He poured his heart and soul into his writing, and before long, he had a collection of stories that he was proud of. One day, Peter's parents came to visit him at the bookstore. They were surprised and delighted to see how happy their son was. They listened as Peter told them about his dreams of becoming a writer, and they were supportive of his dreams. Peter knew that he had a lot of hard work ahead of him, but he was determined to make his dreams a reality. He spent every spare moment he had writing, editing, and revising his stories. He submitted his stories to magazines and literary journals, and slowly but surely, his work started getting published. Over time, Peter became known as a talented young writer, and people started taking notice of his work. He was invited to speak at writing conferences and book festivals, and he was even offered a publishing deal for a collection of his stories. Peter's dreams had come true, but he never forgot where he came from. He continued to work at the bookstore, and he used his writing to inspire and encourage others. He wrote stories for children who were struggling with reading, and he donated his books to schools and libraries in underprivileged areas. Years passed, and Peter became a successful author, but he never lost his love for the written word. He continued to write, always striving to improve his craft and inspire others. And every time he walked into the bookstore where it all began, he was filled with a sense of gratitude and wonder. In the end, Peter's story was one of hard work, determination, and a deep love for the written word. He had taken a chance on his dream, and it had paid off in ways he could never have imagined. And as he looked back on his life, he knew that he had made the world a little bit brighter with his words. After many years of writing and publishing, Peter had become a renowned author. His books had touched the hearts of people all over the world, and he had won numerous awards for his work. Despite his success, Peter remained humble and grounded, always striving to improve his craft and help others along the way. One day, as Peter was signing books at a bookstore, a young girl approached him. She was shy and nervous, but she held out a copy of Peter's latest book and asked him to sign it. Peter smiled at her and took the book, asking her what her name was. "My name is Emily," she said softly. Peter smiled and signed the book for her. "It's so nice to meet you, Emily. Have you read the book yet?" Emily shook her head. "Not yet, but I can't wait to. I love your stories, Mr. Peter." Peter's heart swelled with pride and gratitude. "Thank you, Emily. That means a lot to me. What's your favorite story of mine?" Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I love the one about the dragon who learns to love. It's so beautiful." Peter smiled. "That's one of my favorites too. Do you know what I think is so special about that story?" Emily shook her head. "I think it's special because it reminds us that even the things that seem scary or different on the outside can have a heart full of love and kindness on the inside. Just like the dragon." Peter smiled. "That's one of my favorites too. Do you know what I think is so special about that story?" Emily shook her head. "I think it's special because it reminds us that even the things that seem scary or different on the outside can have a heart full of love and kindness on the inside. Just like the dragon." Emily looked up at Peter with wide eyes. "Do you really think so?" Peter nodded. "I do. And I hope that you remember that, no matter what life brings your way, there is always hope and love to be found." Emily smiled at Peter, and he could see the hope and wonder in her eyes. As she walked away, clutching her signed book, Peter knew that he had made a difference in her life, just as his books had made a difference in the lives of countless others. And so, Peter continued to write, always striving to touch hearts and inspire others with his words. He knew that the power of stories was limitless, and he was honored to be a part of that magic. Years later, as Peter looked back on his life, he knew that he had lived a full and meaningful life. He had followed his dreams, worked hard, and used his talents to make the world a better place. And as he closed his eyes for the last time, he knew that his stories would live on, inspiring generations to come. In the years that followed, Peter continued to write, always striving to create stories that would touch the hearts and minds of readers everywhere. He wrote novels, short stories, and even a few children's books. But no matter what he wrote, his love for the written word remained constant. As he grew older, Peter became more reflective about his life and his work. He realized that his success as a writer had not come from talent or luck alone, but from the support and encouragement of those around him. his family, his friends, his readers, and even the customers at the bookstore where he had once worked had all played a role in helping him achieve his dreams. And so, as a way of giving back, Peter decided to start a writing scholarship. Each year, he would select a promising young writer and offer them financial support, mentorship, and the opportunity to publish their work. The first year of the scholarship was a huge success, and Peter was overjoyed to see how his support was helping young writers achieve their dreams. The scholarship became an annual event, and over the years, many talented writers were given the chance to shine. As Peter's own writing career began to wind down, he knew that his legacy would live on through the work of these young writers. And he felt a deep sense of pride and satisfaction knowing that he had helped to nurture a new generation of storytellers. Eventually, Peter's health began to fail, and he knew that his time was running out. He gathered his family and closest friends around him, and they talked and laughed and shared memories late into the night. In the quiet moments, as he lay in bed, Peter reflected on his life and his work. He knew that he had been blessed with a wonderful family, great friends, and a fulfilling career. He felt grateful for the opportunities he had been given and the people who had helped him along the way. As the end drew near, Peter's mind turned to his stories. He thought about the characters he had created, the worlds he had built, and the messages he had tried to convey. He realized that, in the end, his stories were his greatest legacy. And so, with a smile on his face, Peter closed his eyes for the final time. He knew that his stories would live on, touching the hearts and minds of readers for generations to come. And he was at peace, knowing that he had done his part to make the world a little bit brighter with his words. Once upon a time, there was a detective named Jack. Jack was a very good detective, and he had solved many mysteries in his career. He was known for his keen eye for detail and his ability to connect the dots. One day, Jack received a call from the police department. There had been a robbery at a jewelry store, and they needed Jack's help to solve the case. Jack arrived at the jewelry store and immediately started looking for clues. He noticed that the lock on the door had been broken, and there were footprints on the floor. He also noticed that some of the jewelry had been left behind, while others had been taken. Jack spoke to the store owner, a man named Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith told Jack that the jewelry that had been taken was worth a lot of money, and that he had no idea who could have done it. Jack listened carefully to Mr. Smith's story and then started to ask questions. He asked if anyone had been acting strange around the store recently, or if there had been any suspicious activity. Mr. Smith couldn't think of anything out of the ordinary, but he promised to call Jack if he thought of anything. Jack left the store and went to the police station to analyze the clues he had gathered. He looked at the footprints and noticed that they were made by a size 9 shoe. He also noticed that the footprints were slightly pointed inwards, which meant that the person who made them had a slight limp. Jack decided to visit the shoe store in town to see if he could find any leads. He spoke to the store owner and asked if anyone had recently purchased a size 9 shoe with a pointed inward foot. The store owner told Jack that a man had bought a pair of shoes like that a few days ago. He had a slight limp and was wearing a hat and sunglasses, which the store owner found strange. Jack thanked the store owner and then went back to the police station to look through the mugshots. He found a man who matched the description of the shoe store customer and showed the picture to Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith immediately recognized the man as one of his regular customers. He had come into the store a few times to look at the jewelry and seemed very interested in the most expensive pieces. Jack and the police department went to the man's house to arrest him. They found the stolen jewelry hidden under his bed, along with the tools he had used to break into the store. The man was arrested and sent to jail. Mr. Smith was overjoyed to get his jewelry back, and he thanked Jack for his help. "Thank you, Jack," Mr. Smith said. "You truly are the best detective in town." Jack smiled and said, "It was my pleasure, Mr. Smith. I'm just doing my job." From that day on, Jack continued to solve mysteries and help people in need. He had a talent for finding clues and piecing together evidence, and he never stopped until he found the truth. He was the best detective in town, and everyone knew it. As Jack walked back to his office, he thought about the case he had just solved. It had been a challenging one, but he was proud of himself for cracking it. However, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to the case than what he had uncovered. Jack decided to do some more investigating, just to be sure. He went back to the jewelry store and looked at the security camera footage. He noticed that the man who had broken into the store was wearing a watch that looked very expensive. Jack asked Mr. Smith if he knew anything about the watch. Mr. Smith said that he didn't, but that he would try to find out more information. A few days later, Mr. Smith called Jack with some news. He had found out that the watch the thief was wearing was made by a very exclusive and expensive brand. The only store in town that sold that brand of watch was a high-end department store called Sinclair's. Jack went to Sinclair's and spoke to the sales associate who worked in the watch department. He showed her a picture of the watch from the security camera footage and asked if she recognized it. The sales associate nodded and said, "Yes, I remember that watch. We sold it to a man a few days ago. He was very particular about what he wanted and seemed to have a lot of money to spend." Jack asked if she could remember anything else about the man, and she said that he had been wearing a hat and sunglasses, and that he had a slight limp. Jack thanked the sales associate and left the store. He went back to the police station and looked through the mugshots again. He found a man who matched the description and showed the picture to the sales associate. The sales associate immediately recognized the man and said, "Yes, that's the man who bought the watch. He was very strange and gave me a creepy feeling." Jack knew he was on the right track. He decided to do some more investigating and found out that the man was a well-known art thief who had been on the run for years. Jack knew that he had to act fast. He went to the man's house and found him packing a bag. Jack arrested the man and searched his bag. He found several stolen pieces of art, including a painting that had been missing for years. The man was sent to jail for his crimes, and the stolen art was returned to its rightful owners. Jack had solved another case and had caught a dangerous criminal in the process. Jack was proud of himself for his hard work and dedication to his job. He knew that being a detective was not an easy job, but he loved the thrill of the hunt and the satisfaction of solving a case. As he sat in his office, Jack thought about the next case he would tackle. He knew that there would always be more mysteries to solve and more criminals to catch. And he was ready for the challenge. Jack had been working as a detective for years, and he had seen his fair share of cases. But there was one case that he had never been able to solve. It was a cold case from years ago, and it had always bothered him that he couldn't find the killer. One day, Jack received a phone call from a woman who said that she had information about the case. She said that she had been at the scene of the crime and had seen the killer. Jack met with the woman, and she told him what she had seen. She gave him a description of the killer and the car he had been driving. Jack knew that this was the break he had been waiting for. He went back to the police station and pulled up the old case files. He looked at the witness statements and the evidence, and he started to piece together the puzzle. As he worked on the case, he realized that there were some things that didn't add up. He went back to the crime scene and looked around. He noticed that there was a piece of evidence that had been missed. Jack took the evidence back to the lab and had it analyzed. The results were shocking. The evidence proved that the killer was not who everyone thought it was. It was someone else entirely. Jack knew that he had to act fast. He went back to the woman who had given him the information and asked her if she could identify the killer. She agreed to go with him to a lineup, and she picked out the person she had seen that night. Jack arrested the man and took him back to the police station. The man confessed to the crime and gave details about what had happened that night. He said that he had been drunk and had gotten into an argument with the victim. He didn't remember what had happened after that, but he knew that he had killed the victim. Jack was relieved that the case had finally been solved. He knew that he had made a difference in the world and had brought justice to the victim and their family. As Jack walked out of the police station, he felt a sense of satisfaction. He knew that being a detective was not just a job, it was a calling. It was about making the world a safer place and helping those who couldn't help themselves. Jack knew that there would always be more cases to solve and more criminals to catch. But he was ready for the challenge, and he knew that he had what it took to be a great detective. As he walked down the street, Jack saw a young boy who was lost. He stopped to help the boy find his way home. And as he walked away, he knew that he had made a difference in that boy's life too. Jack smiled to himself as he walked back to his car. He knew that he had found his purpose in life, and he was proud to be a detective.